Welcome to the IGSHPA Town Hall for January 2023. I'm Jeff Hammond, Executive Director at IGSHPA, and I'm happy to have a great presentation with Ryan Dougherty of Geo this morning. Before we get started, I wanted to point out a new feature. If you'll notice on the slide, we have a sponsor. That's something that we're starting in 2023. We're fortunate to have Department of Energy's Geothermal Technologies Office sponsor this town hall for January. Thank you very much, GTO. We appreciate the sponsorship and definitely appreciate the support of the Department of Energy for geothermal systems. So thank you for that sponsorship. Before I turn this over to Ryan Dougherty at Geo, we have just some updates here with the latest IGSHPA news. One of the topics to talk about, if you go to the IGSHPA website, IGSHPA.org, and click on events and training, you'll notice a form at the very top. If you'd like to participate and present in one of the town halls or the Dig Deeper webinars, the Dig Deeper webinars are just a little bit more technical in nature. Town hall webinars are a little more broad-based topics. Fill out that form in the events page, and we'll take a look at the abstract, and hopefully you'll be able to present at one of the later town halls or Dig Deepers. Along those lines, I mentioned we have a sponsor this year for town halls and Dig Deeper webinars. In that same location, just below the form for the abstract, you'll find a sponsor opportunities flyer, and that has member pricing, IGSHPA member pricing, and non-member pricing. We'd love to have you as a sponsor at a future town hall or Dig Deeper, so check that out when you have a chance. If you weren't at our annual conference in December in Las Vegas, save the date. We're going to be back again. We're partnering with NGWA again this year, and NGWA has the conference in Las Vegas again this year. So it will be in the same time frame. This year it's December 5th to the 7th, so please save the date. As soon as we have more details, we'll be providing additional information. We should have enough details next month to announce a lot of the at least initial thoughts on what this conference is going to be. It will be at the conference center in Vegas, convention center, I should say, just like it was last year. So hopefully we'll have a repeat success. I'm sure we will, and even more people in Vegas next year. If you haven't noticed, check out our business directory. If you go to IGSHPA.org, there's a link at the very top for the business directory page. And this is active now. It's interactive, in fact, where it was more of a list previously. Now you can click on the state of the province, and it will give you the details of IGSHPA members in that area. So you can sort or filter by the type of member that you're looking for. And then once you find that particular listing, you can click on that member and get additional details. So in the example here, you can see what states or provinces that are served, and contact information and so forth. So check that out. That's one of the big advantages of being a member. Now you can find services, products, those kind of things very easy. Just a reminder, this town hall, as well as our Dig Deeper webinars, are eligible for CEUs. If you would, please, in the chat, send your name and also your email address, and we'll make sure that we count this town hall as part of your requirements for renewal for any certifications that you may have. So please send that in the chat when you get a chance. Some housekeeping notes. If you don't mind, please mute your microphone and use the chat session for questions. At the end of Ryan's presentation, I'll be reading the questions from the chat message, and we'll address those. If we run out of time, we'll do our best to get back to you after the webinar. But the chat session works out really well for asking questions. If it's something more detailed, we'll ask you to unmute and have a conversation. So Ryan will be available for questions after his presentation. All right, just to make sure that everybody knows what our intentions are here. This is a quick disclaimer and conflict of interest notice that we read at each of our town halls and Dig Deepers. The upcoming presentation represents the opinion of the presenter and does not represent any official position, opinion, or endorsement of any products or services by IGSHPA or its members. IGSHPA Town Halls and Dig Deeper webinars are for member updates and education on the latest information in the geothermal heat pump industry and are not meant to endorse one technology or brand over another. It's the presenter's responsibility to disclose any conflict of interest or position that may arise in the content of the webinar. All right, with that, let's introduce Ryan Dougherty from GeoExchange, and I'll turn it over to him after that. You can share your screen anytime you like, Ryan. So this topic is updates to the U.S. residential tax credits and the Inflation Reduction Act. Last year, we talked about the commercial tax credits, and this year we're going to start off with a presentation by Ryan that addresses residential tax credits. Ryan Dougherty is president of GeoExchange Organization, a national trade group representing the geothermal heat pump industry. He has extensive experience in public policy and governance, most recently serving as Deputy Director of the Illinois Healthcare and Human Services Framework. A decade in public service has helped inform his new role as an ambassador for geothermal heat pumps and building decarbonization, helping policymakers and energy professionals understand the technology's potential. We're thrilled to have Ryan here this morning. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Ryan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. It's an honor to be here. And you know, it's great to kick off another year of town halls. I was so impressed with the quality of the speakers and the content and all of the town halls and dig deepers that IGSHPA put on last year. And I think it just underlines the fact that IGSHPA is a tremendous resource for this industry in so many ways. I know we're over a month removed from the conference, but I've still got warm fuzzies coming out of Las Vegas. Just a tremendous event. It was so great to be back with so many friends and colleagues for a really exceptional several days of learning and information exchange. I made some new acquaintances there and am still conducting some follow-up based on the great interactions that I had. So can't thank IGSHPA enough for all the great work that they're doing. Jeff asked me a couple weeks ago to do this, and really it follows up on a wonderful webinar that was done last month by Jacob Goldman from Energy Tax Savers. I thought that was a fantastic discussion on the commercial credits. There's, in my mind, Energy Tax Savers is one of the foremost law firms in the country that is working on clean energy credits. If you're a business interested in how to claim not only the investment tax credit, but also the 179D commercial energy efficient building deduction, you really ought to link up with Energy Tax Savers. And if you haven't seen that webinar, I would urge you to go to the IGSHPA YouTube page. It's really easy to find. Just go to YouTube, type in IGSHPA, and you can see all of their past town halls, dig deepers, and webinars. But Jacob did an excellent job covering the commercial credits. Today, we're going to talk about the residential credits and some other incentives that are in the Inflation Reduction Act. It seems like it was just yesterday that this thing passed, but it was actually way back in August. And the feds continue to roll out new information. Just a couple weeks ago, more stuff came out. First off, let me just talk a little bit about the Geothermal Exchange Organization. We are your voice in Washington. We are the yin to IGSHPA's yang in many ways. Our focus is public policy. And while we work primarily in Washington, D.C., we're very active in state houses and with state legislatures and regulators around the country. And I see many familiar names and friendly faces online on the webinar today. And it's been a pleasure to work with you, many of you over the years, on a range of public policy issues. We're also focused on consumer awareness and building and strengthening partnerships within the industry and with external stakeholders. But as I mentioned, really our bread and butter is DC. We've got a great team in Washington on Capitol Hill, without whom we would be unable to achieve the significant victory that we have in the IRA. And let's make no mistake that all of the benefits that for this industry that are encompassed in the Inflation Reduction Act would not have happened without the work of GeoExchange. You know, I can't take all the credit for that, not even a small portion of it. It was a wide-ranging collaborative effort, but you know, the fact remains that GeoExchange was instrumental in ensuring that the Inflation Reduction Act not only included significant incentives for the geothermal heat pump industry, but it did it in an appropriate way that our industry can access. Ever since Biden took office, we knew that there was going to be an opportunity for significant clean energy legislation. It was a week or two after he took office that he made an announcement stating that his administration was going to be the most aggressive on clean energy and climate action. And talk about a 2-year roller coaster. I mean, we went in and started working in January of 2020 because we knew what might be coming down the pike. And it was, you know, if you follow the ins and outs, it was fits and starts all the way. I remember being in Washington in July of last year, and Build Back Better, the reconciliation bill, was dead in the water. I was there to beg our Republican supporters for some small end of year extension because we didn't think anything was going to happen. I got back from Washington and Manchin unveiled the Inflation Reduction Act, much to everyone's surprise. All of the groundwork that we had laid in the preceding 18 months had paid off. There, in many respects, Congress didn't know what to do with us. They kept plugging us in ways that were detrimental to our industry. At one point, they lumped us in with water heaters and air source heat pumps and capped our credit at $8,000. And we screamed bloody murder. We went to them, explained that we absolutely couldn't abide by being moved to Section 25C, and they listened to us. And that's a testament to the rapport and the relationships that we have built over many years, not only with Congress, but also with the White House, with the executive agencies, and many others on Capitol Hill. And I should also mention that we had some good company. We were part of a large coalition that included the solar industry. It included the National Rural Electric Cooperative Association and the National Association of Home Builders. And it's just a case study in how a coordinated campaign can get results. And that's what we have here in the Inflation Reduction Act. So what's in the Inflation Reduction Act? Well, the residential credits are really the same as they've always been. They just extended the dates out through 2034, and that's it. Nothing has changed. They work the same way, and that concludes my remarks. No, I'm kidding. But there's not a lot. I was joking with Jeff. There's not a lot of new and exciting stuff when it comes to the residential clean energy credits, which are the Section 25D credits that have been in existence since 2010. They're 30% of the total cost. That includes labor, that includes the ground heat exchanger, that includes grout, the piping, flow centers, basically anything from the heat pump back to the ground. And I should say that these credits are retroactive. So if you have a customer that put in these a system last year, they can claim 30%. They are not refundable, I should say. In an earlier version of the Inflation Reduction Act, they made these credits refundable, and which meant that if you had no tax liability as a homeowner, you could basically say, hey, give me cash, just send me a check for 30% of the cost. They nixed that, and it's sort of a double-edged sword, I would say. We would probably prefer them to be refundable, but when they were going to make them refundable, they had set up a whole scheme, a whole system where contracting installers were going to have to register with the IRS, get a unique identifier, and every single job was going to have to be tracked with a unique identifier. You'd have to assign each install basically, a special unique thing. The contractor would have to tie that through to the IRS, and it was a way to prevent fraud, waste, and abuse. It would have been burdensome. I think we could have lived with it as an industry, but they scrapped that whole idea, and they basically just said, they're not refundable. You can carry them forward. So let's say you have limited tax liability, you're a retiree, or you don't have a lot of income to leverage the credit against. You can take a small portion of the credit or no portion of the credit. And then in future years, when you may have tax liability, you can claim it in those future years. I see Holly in the chat. And by the way, if you have questions as I'm discussing some of this stuff, don't be bashful. Feel free to unmute and chime in. Holly asked, does it include the backup heating system? No, it does not. And this is really interesting, because I think a lot of people get confused on this. Stuff that is upstream from the heat pump is not eligible. So let's say you put in a pellet stove, or you retain, or you put in like an oil or a propane or natural gas backup system. That stuff is not eligible. And a lot of this is something that is lost on a lot of people. I think that many folks claim the ductwork for retrofits. Often you need to reconfigure or modify the ductwork or install new ductwork, and even on new construction, the ductwork is not eligible. This has been out there for some time in IRS notice, a notice from 2013. And it really pretty clearly states that distribution equipment, and I would take that to mean, the a hydronic system, like the piping and in-floor piping for a hydronic system, that would also not qualify. I see Lorraine in the chat asked about a buffer tank. I think that would.
Stop sign.
I think that would qualify, because if you look at the letter of the law, and I probably should have put this in the slides, it's anything that uses the ground as a heat source or sink. So if you're discharging excess heat to a buffer tank, yeah, you're using the ground, and that would qualify. Rick Rockasey asked, do we still deduct the electric utility cash rebates prior to determining the 30% credit? Let me get to that in a moment, Rick. So how do you claim the credits? Just as you have in the past, you use IRS form 5695. They've got the updated form on the IRS website. Any tax filing software has this integrated into it. It's pretty straightforward. You take the total cost for the system and you multiply it by 30%. And so to Rick's question about what's in, what's out, right before the holidays, the IRS published a really handy dandy frequently asked questions fact sheet on the 25C and 25D credits. And it actually speaks directly to Rick's question about what is the basis of the credit. So when you get, let's say you're taking other sort of state rebates and credits. First of all, anybody who's on this webinar needs to go download this and keep it in their back pocket. It's nothing really groundbreaking for or new or eye-opening for the 25D residential energy credits. And I should say that what else is in there? It's not just geothermal heat pumps. It's solar panels. It is micro turbines and fuel cells, small wind, and a few other things, fuel cells, and coming in next year, battery storage technology. You can't, if you install the battery, like a power wall or something this year or this past year, you can't claim it. But if you install a battery this year, you can get a 30% credit against the cost of that. This FAQ speaks to what is in the basis, and sometimes you have to take the rebate off the top. I would refer you. It's a little different based on whether it's an energy efficiency credit from a utility, which usually does not go against the total cost, or some other state rebate. So refer to the FAQ. Refer to the FAQ on this. So I see some back and forth in the chat about auxiliary heat. It really depends on what the heat is. So if it's tied into the geothermal heating system, yes, you can put that into the cost basis. If it's some sort of fossil fuel based auxiliary heating system that's upstream from the unit, you cannot claim that. And that goes back to, and I would refer you to IRS Notice 2013-70, which says that backup emergency heating or cooling systems are not eligible. There are other provisions. I mentioned 25C. There are other provisions in the law that deal with other home improvements that are not geothermal heat pumps. So this includes all sorts of stuff like air source heat pumps. And the frequently asked questions document clarified for the first time that you can like the total amount each year under 25C is going to be $3,200. It's $1,200 for all sorts of stuff like windows, doors, insulation, energy audits, panel upgrades. All of that stuff is at 30%, capped at $1,200 a year, but it can be combined with another section of this credit that is up to $2,000. And that is for heat pump water heaters, air source heat pumps, and biomass stoves or boilers. You can take these credits every single year. I've heard people talk about the fact that every home in America, in essence, now has money in the bank. The IRA created a bank account, sort of a virtual energy savings bank account for homeowners, and your customers ought to start thinking about what they can do to withdraw dollars from that bank account every year. I know I'm already contemplating foam sealing my basement rim joists and just tightening up my house. I want to get a new back door that's more energy efficient. And I'm going to try to max these credits every year until I make my building envelope as tight as it can be. And so this is something that is probably of interest to your customers, and you might flag this for them. And you can take these credits every single year. So the clock starts January 1st of next year. There are some other provisions in the law that have gotten a lot of attention. There is the homeowner managing energy savings rebate program. There is the high efficiency electric home rebate program. These are, there was about $9 billion, 4.5 and 4.3 billion for each program that was allocated for these new rebate programs. These are not credits. These are cash rebates that are going to go through state energy offices and be allocated to homeowners for a range of energy efficiency upgrades. It includes air source and ground source heat pumps. It includes home rewiring projects, panel upgrades, all the electric stoves, I think is in here as well. All sorts of energy efficiency and HVAC upgrades are eligible for these programs. Unfortunately, they're brand new. We don't have a ton of information yet. Back in November, the administration announced that they had allocated the amounts to the states. So state energy offices were required to apply for these funds. And I believe every single state and Puerto Rico, tribal governments all applied. There's an outstanding question whether every single state is actually going to stand up the program, and because it's incumbent upon the states to set up all the parameters and the guardrails and make sure that that meets the requirements of the feds. So the feds are going to be watching and monitoring and overseeing these programs very closely, but it's going to be up to the states to administer them. There's a number of outstanding questions. When are they going to start? The rumor is that they're going to start rolling out in the second half of this year. That may be wishful thinking. There is a lot of work to be done. But all the states have applied, and now they've divvied up on a formula basis who is getting what at each state. And it's tens of millions of dollars generally for each state that is going to flow to homeowners. Now, another big question is stackability. Are you going to be able to get these rebate funds? And in certain cases, we're talking thousands and thousands of dollars. For the homes program, it is, I think, up to $4,000 for a ground source heat pump. For the high efficiency electric home rebate program, it's up to $8,000. I should caveat that with the fact that high efficiency electric home rebate program is a means tested program. It is for low and moderate income individuals, and it is basically factored against.
May I have your attention, please? The MLK chili cookout.
Oh, great, Carrie. We'll definitely come to the chili cook-off. Thank you. So they're gonna judge it on the area median income of the homeowner or the renter, because these programs are also available for people who are in rental households. A lot of information yet to come out on this. And as I said, the key question is whether or not you're going to be able to combine them. So let's say you're already getting some sort of rebate from NYSERDA or from your state or from a utility to help defray the cost of a heat pump install. Can you still get the state rebate? What if you're taking the 25C or D tax credit? Can you take the homes or the HERA rebate? It's an outstanding question. The law is mum on the point. There's nothing in the law that precludes the ability to claim both, federal tax credits and the rebates, but it remains to be seen in forthcoming guidance, what you're going to be able to stack these with. Last year, just over a month ago, or a little less than a month ago, the White House came out with a pretty comprehensive guidebook on the Inflation Reduction Act. It's 180 some pages. A lot of it deals with clean generation and stuff that may not be relevant or of interest to this audience, but just go ahead and skip to page 104, where it starts to dig into some of these residential and commercial clean energy provisions that are relevant to our industry. It's a handy guidebook to keep in the back of your pocket. This combined with the frequently asked questions document and the 2013 guidance memo, you should just keep all of those in your library for reference. I want to give a shout out to Rewiring America, which is a relatively new group that sprang up a couple of years ago, but they are a real powerhouse, and it's been a pleasure to work with them. Ari Matusiak is their CEO. Jamal Lewis leads a lot of their efforts on building decarbonization and electrification, and they're an amazing group. And I got to give them credit for giving proper credit and awareness to ground source geothermal heat pumps. A lot of sort of federal energy efficiency and renewable energy organizations tend to forget about or overlook geothermal heat pumps, but Rewiring America has done a great job of factoring our technology in. They have a really awesome Inflation Reduction Act calculator where you can basically plug in some information about where you live and what your income level is, and it'll spit out numbers on what sort of retrofits and upgrades you can do to your home and what you can qualify for. Somebody asked about links. We're going to share these. We're going to share these slides after the fact, and all the links will be in there. On the right of the slide is a breakdown on the high efficiency electric home rebate program and what is eligible. So up to $8,000 for both air source and ground source systems. And once again, this is a means tested program that is aimed at low and moderate income individuals. But check out Rewiring America's website. Lots of great fact sheets and other information on there. They've been a great partner to work with. So I know this webinar is supposed to be about residential credits and incentives, but there's a few other things I wanted to flag. I mentioned Jacob Goldman giving a wonderful webinar before the holidays on commercial incentives. And if you joined this town hall late, go to the IGSHPA YouTube channel and look up that webinar. It's excellent. Energy Tax Savers is doing a webinar on the 18th, and it's going to cover some new stuff. Notably, just last week, the IRS announced the new reference standard for the 179D energy efficient commercial building deduction. If I remember correctly, starting in 2025, that's going to be ASHRAE 90.1, the 2019 version, if I'm not mistaken. But you can go to the link where they have announced that these sort of reference standards. And then if you do commercial work, it's important for you to know about the 179D deduction. And there's no better entity to get you up to speed and educate you about these deductions than Energy Tax Savers. So make sure to attend their webinar on January 18th. I want to flag a program that doesn't get a lot of attention in this industry, but really we ought to pay good attention to. It's the REAP program, the Rural Energy for America program. And they doubled the amount that's allocated for this program in the Inflation Reduction Act. And they supercharged the program in a way. The REAP program is run by the US Department of Agriculture, and it's essentially for businesses in rural America. And there's some qualifications on what is a rural business. But if you meet that criteria, you can apply for both loans and grants. And they have sweetened the deal for REAP. The loans, previously you had to put up, I think, 75% of a total project cost on your own money to get a 25% grant. They've increased that to 50% now. So the USDA will cover up to half of a project cost. And I think they've also made some changes to how their loans under this program work. Generally, if you look at the awards in past years for who's getting REAP, there's certainly a good amount. There's a handful every year of geothermal heat pump projects, but certainly not enough for my liking. There's a lot of solar projects, a lot of grain dryers, and other stuff that, if it were up to me, I don't know that I were given these awards, I don't know that I would be incentivizing some of these awards. Not to knock USDA, it's a great program, but I'm urging you, if you serve commercial customers in rural areas, they can go for this money, and it's not too extraordinarily difficult to apply. It's a great program, and if you want to reach out to me, I've got a bit of an ace in the hole, a guy up in Wisconsin named Andy Olson, who works for the Environmental Law and Policy Center, who is my REAP expert. He is a guru and knows all about this program and can assist you or your customer with crafting a successful application. Something else that just came out, I think yesterday, the state of Colorado, I have been telling people, is the new frontier in a lot of ways for this industry. They are going gung-ho on geothermal. They passed several pieces of legislation last year that incentivize geothermal. They spur building decarbonization. And one particular piece of legislation, HB 1381, created a new geothermal grant program. It established a sort of a state geothermal coordinator, a guy named Bryce Carter, who attended the IGSHPA conference last month. Really smart guy, came from the solar and clean energy industries. And he's got the weight of the world on his shoulders because his job is building out and developing the market for geothermal, both high temp and low temp heat pump technology in the state. And doggone it, he's going to do it come hell or high water. There is a tremendous amount of interest amongst utilities, amongst rural co-ops, amongst municipalities. And there's a grant program. They're gonna put millions of dollars out on the street this year for a variety of projects. Those applications are going to open up in the next couple months. They've just announced this advisory council. If you do work in Colorado, if you're engaged in the industry there, take a look at this advisory council. You may want to be a part of it, and certainly get plugged in. And I got to say, what's happening in Colorado is indicative of trends that are happening all over the United States. I am trying to stay on top of legislation that is coming out in most state houses across the country. This is a really key time to be filing legislation and prepping it for spring session. Here in Illinois, I'm working with a number of stakeholders to file some geothermal bills before the deadline, the legislative deadline at the end of this month. I know that Debbie New is on the line, and she's in Vermont and has been doing just a tremendous amount of work around thermal energy networks and community geothermal. I think they've already filed legislation there. I know Zainab and Audrey and all the great people at HEAT in Massachusetts are working diligently on legislation. We saw late last year the Thermal Energy Network and Jobs Act pass in New York, and all of the advocates and stakeholders in that state deserve a tremendous amount of credit for that first of its kind bill. This is my call to action to you all to get involved. The time is now. Find out what is going on with your state. If you have a relationship with a state legislator, contact that individual and ask them, is there anything happening with geothermal this year? And if not, why not? Can we do something? Is it too late? Let's get the ball rolling. If you don't have a relationship, start one. Find your elected official and call them, reach out to their office and say, what is happening on building decarbonization this session? I want to know, I want to be involved, and I want to get active and engaged. The time is now, folks. We've got to move quickly. I see Bill just said in the chat that Governor Hochul made a big announcement yesterday, no fossil fuels in buildings. I flagged that in my next slide. It's a tremendous groundbreaking announcement. I do want to flag some upcoming events. I hope you'll join me at these. The Iowa Geothermal Association always puts on a great conference. It's in Cedar Rapids and not Des Moines this year. I'm not going to be able to be there. I'll be in Washington, but my colleague Jeremiah Strode is going in my stead and will be speaking. I know a lot of great folks who are going to be there. It's an excellent event. The Geothermal Alliance of Illinois does their conference every spring. It's March 14th and 15th this year in Peoria, Illinois. Please join me there. And then the New York Geo Conference is in Albany again in April. Always a fantastic event. Please come out and join us there. So what lies ahead? Bill flagged Governor Hochul's announcement yesterday. I wouldn't want to work for a gas utility right now. I mean, or a gas appliance maker or distributor. Sorry, did I get the date wrong? No. John Travacco, I just said that. April 20th.
No, you just said April. I just gave it dates.
Okay, thank you very much, John.
All good.
It's not a day goes by where I don't see something about gas stoves, and I am really keen to rip mine out, even though it's only a couple years old. I'm going to. I'm trying to be like Bill Martin and many others who have gone net zero in their homes, and I got to get off gas as soon as possible for my own health and the health of my household. There's real talk of the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission regulating gas stoves. I mean, there's just burgeoning evidence that these things are a menace to public health. And, combustion in buildings isn't necessary. I don't want to get on a soapbox and attack the natural gas industry. I think there's going to be a lot of uses for natural gas in the future, but in my view, there's really no reason why we need to use fossil fuels for heating and hot water production any longer. And I think there's a growing realization that is the case. And that's just a fact. And we've got to decarbonize buildings. New York, Massachusetts, two states that are, in my view, big leaders in this, but their leadership is starting to have a domino effect, and this stuff is coming to the Midwest. You're going to see more and more building decarb activity this year. I see Andy Leiter put in the chat that the Minnesota Ground Source Heat Pump Association is having their event on March 8th. Sorry, I missed that, Andy. That's always an excellent event. Please attend if you're available. Lots more exciting stuff happening. I didn't talk about the Defense Production Act, but that's still chugging along. We submitted comments on the DPA late last year. There's a growing realization that heat pumps are not just about clean energy. To kind of paraphrase or steal a quote from Bob Wyman, it's a matter of national security and international diplomacy now. Heat pumps are not going anywhere. They are the way of the future, and it is a really exciting time to be involved in this great industry. I'm happy to take any questions. I think I probably missed some stuff in the chat. So please pipe up, put something in the chat, just go off mute, and I'll do the best of my ability to answer questions if anybody has any.
Thanks so much, Ryan. I appreciate that really, really informative presentation. I kept track of the chat messages, so maybe we can start with those. I'm amazed at your multitasking, so I'll catch the ones that you didn't already answer. Rick asks about electric utility cash rebates. Do we still deduct those rebates prior to determining the 30% credit?
Yeah, I was trying to multitask. I was trying to multitask during my comments and figure out what is what do you have to take off the top of the basis, because it's in the frequently asked questions, and I just couldn't find it as I was talking. Let me see real quick if I can find it here. Qualifying residents, labor costs, the timing of credits. I feel like, hold on, let me just, I know the answer to this. I just can't remember it off the top of my head, because it depends on whether or not the credit, what sort of additional rebate you get. And so ask me the next question, Jack.
Okay, sure. I will ask the next one here. Wyatt asks, does the air source credit, this is the 25C credit, include the furnace/air handler that it's combined with?
The air handler, no, you can't claim a furnace on the 25D, the 30% uncapped credit in 25D. You may be able to claim a credit on the 25C credit for other equipment. So
Wyatt's asking about air source 25C.
If it's connected to, so 25C, you can take credits for central air conditioners, natural gas, propane or oil water heaters, natural gas, propane or oil furnaces or hot water boilers, electric or natural gas heat pumps, electric or natural gas heat pump water heaters, biomass stoves, improvements to panel boards, sub-panel boards, branch circuits or feeders. All that stuff is eligible.
Okay.
But there are certain limitations and caps on that stuff.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. I believe you addressed Rick's question about state rebates being income-based, and you mentioned those are means tested. Did I catch that correctly?
Yeah, the high efficiency electric home rebate program is means tested, and it's based on the area median income. And I forget it's like you have to be at 50% AMI, 150% AMI or less. And then if you are, if you have a less income, even less income than that, you can get additional credits. The homeowner managing energy savings rebate program is not means tested, but there are sweeteners. You can get more money if you meet LMI criteria. So
Okay.
anybody can take that rebate, but you can get more money if you are a lower moderate income individual. So, and to Rick's earlier question, I did find the answer in the FAQ. The question is, what happens to the 25C and 25D credits if a government or a public utility provides a subsidy? For example, an incentive, a grant, or a rebate to a taxpayer to purchase or install qualifying property. The answer depends on the facts that apply to each taxpayer. Go look at this frequently asked questions document. I don't want to read this verbatim, but it depends on, is the money coming from a public utility? If a public utility provides a subsidy for the installation of that heat pump or that energy improvement property, the value of the subsidy is not included in the customer's gross income. So the taxpayer may not claim a credit for the amount of the subsidy. So you basically have to take it off the top and then claim the 30% against the net. The rebate, if it's a rebate, those generally represent a reduction in the purchase price, and the taxpayer must reduce the amount of the expenditure to calculate the tax credit. If it's a state energy efficiency incentive, they are generally not required to reduce the purchase price. So don't reduce the total amount. It's a little complicated, but this frequently asked questions document is instructive in that regard.
Sounds like the FAQs are the way to go. Along those lines, there were a couple questions leading to how to get the links that you have in your presentation and about recording of this presentation. We record all of the town halls, and so if you go to the IGSHPA website, IGSHPA.org, at the very top you'll see a YouTube icon. If you click on that, it may be up later today or tomorrow. You'll find this recorded webinar. If they're looking for the links, are you willing to share your slides, Ryan, or can we put together just a page of links?
No, yeah, please. By all means, these slides should be made available on the IGSHPA website. I'm just dropping into the chat the FAQ. That's where you can find the frequently asked questions. And then the White House Guidebook, which is another great resource. There's a link to that.
Okay. So if you're interested in the slides, we'll have the recording online. Just send an email to info@igshpa.org, and we'll send you a copy of Ryan's slides. If you're looking for the recording, that'll be on the top of the IGSHPA page, igshpa.org. So kind of combine those two. John has a question here. How many states have geothermal RECs or thermal RECs? I've exchanged some information with Jason about Maryland.
Yeah, it's a great question. Last I checked, I think there were 8. It may have gone up though. So this gets into a quirk of geothermal heat pumps. Everywhere you go, they want to stick us in a box, right? They wanted to do this with the Inflation Reduction Act. For months and months, at the beginning of 2022, we went in circles with the Senate Finance Committee, and lots of credit to Senator Ron Wyden, who has for years worked on these issues and has always wanted to do a technology neutral approach. The way the code was written was a real hodgepodge because they kept slapping in new technologies in successive years. So if you look at section 48, where the ITC is, even where section 25D is, where the residential credits are, it's very messy. And it created confusion, it created complexity, and every technology is kind of being judged and contemplated in different fashions. So there'd long been this desire to make a determination in a very straightforward, technology neutral way on how you assign the credits and allocate them and award them. And that's what they did in the ITC, in the Inflation Reduction Act. The ITC ends after next year. Every solar, wind, fuel cells, combined heat and power, microturbines, they all fall right out of the investment tax credit. Where do they go? They go to a newly created section of the revenue code that is a technology neutral approach. They tried to plug us into this box and we couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. And we basically said to them, we are both efficient and we are renewable. And you go to states and they say, you can't be both, pick one. Well, geothermal is unlike any other technology out there. And that's a good thing, I would say. But when it comes to, and so if you look at the Inflation Reduction Act, we are the only technology that remains in the ITC beyond 2024. We stay in there through 2034. And that, I mean, that's special treatment that we worked very hard to get in the law. And it's reflective of the fact that we're both efficient and renewable, but for state energy policy purposes, they make you pick one. And to answer John's question, most states, the majority of states have energy efficiency programs that the investor-owned utilities run, and we generally fall into those buckets. But there's a handful of states like Massachusetts, like Maryland, and I'll give a huge shout out to the Maryland Geo Association, to Jason Cullum, Adam Santry, and all the other folks who were involved in the effort last year to make Maryland the first nation or the first state in the nation to build a carve out within its renewable portfolio standard that requires that a certain amount of renewable savings in the state come from geothermal heat pumps, and that a certain percentage of those heat pumps be allocated and delivered and installed in low income households. There's nothing else like that in the United States. Maryland is a true leader in that regard. And there's a number of other states, New Mexico, New Hampshire, that treat geothermal heat pumps as renewable, and they award renewable energy credits. I'll dig into that because I need to update my list, John, and I'm happy to provide that to industry folks. I know we're out of time. Any last questions?
Thank you so much, Ryan. That was super informative. And this recording will be on the IGSHPA website. Really appreciate your time, and contact us or GeoExchange if we can be of any help. Everybody have a great day. Thanks for joining us. Take care.
Thank you. Super helpful.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.